What happened to the heavyweights? Lakers, Nets, Sixers. I mean, well, the Bucks and Clippers are heavyweights. I can't lie, but it's still strange seeing what we see with the Final Four of the NBA playoffs. First, we were talking about the Suns and Clippers in an unlikely conference championship matchup, with the Clippers, of course, being the most likely to be there out of the two. And now we have the Bucks and the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. This ain't strange to y'all? Strange to me. Yeah, but anyway, this is the matchup. We are here today to talk about the Eastern Conference Finals, Milwaukee Bucks versus Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are in the Eastern Conference Finals. Give that team their flowers, give them their props, their respect. Bow down to them because they did that. And if you were someone out there that put a bet that the Hawks would be in the Eastern Conference Finals, I hope you're very rich and I hope you enjoy your spoils. How did they get here? Well, the Hawks were 14-20 back in, I believe, March or February or something like that. They were 14-20, and their coach got fired. Nate McMillan took over as the interim head coach, and for some reason, he still has that tag on him. I would have hired him on full time right when he got past. Well, yeah, the Sixers. I would have hired him on full time. But yeah. So this is back on March 2nd. He took over, and the team won their first 8 games. They went on an 8-game win streak when he took over, and they ended up finishing 27-11 under him. They actually had Rondo at a point in the season. They ended up trading him back to LA, just not the Lakers, to the Clippers. And they were better off for it. I mean, Rondo was in the conference finals himself with the Clippers, but the Hawks were clearly better off for it. It just wasn't a good fit, clearly. It just wasn't a good fit. But yeah, they were 27-11. Made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Found themselves in a matchup, a first-round matchup against the New York Knicks in a series I thought the Knicks would win easily. I said Knicks 4-2. I said they would go up 3-1, but the Hawks would steal one more before the Knicks close it out. And the Hawks did me one better and beat the brakes off New York's in 5. Beat them down in 5. I believe it was a situation where the Hawks got in their Michael Jordan, I took it personally phase and showed me that, not only I was wrong, but I was wrong. Anyway, so yeah, and with that series, Trae Young immediately made his postseason presence known. I mean, from game 1 when he silenced the New York crowd. And he just arrived. Twitter lit up when he did that. They lost game 2. He said something along the lines of, we're going back to Atlanta and they're going to win. I think he said they're going to win them both. And they did. Anyway, they did. They won both games in Atlanta, came back to New York and closed it out. And it really made Julius Randle look bad because of the season he had. Anyway, so they then went on to the second round to take on the Sixers. And because of Embiid's injury, I really thought that would be the reason the Hawks pushed the series to a game 7. I said the series would go to 7, but I said Philly would win in 7. But I had no idea that the reason the series would get pushed that far was because of Ben Simmons' shooting woes. This guy couldn't buy a basket, especially in the fourth quarter. 2 of 2 in one fourth quarter. Made one shot in another one. In the other games, he didn't even shoot the ball in the fourth quarter. Couldn't make a free throw. Can't shoot a jump shot. And as we saw in game 7, passed up on a wide open dunk. His inability to score the ball was just clearly the reason the Sixers had trouble, because you can tell Doc was like frustrated with it, because it's like, what do? You can't. I mean, he did take him out and late in some games, but you can tell it was a situation where he had to clear it upstairs and to tell the people, upper management, like, hey, if this dude can't make these shots, I'm going to have to take him out the game because he's costing us. He's a liability out there, and he clearly was. But anyway, it's not about the Sixers. We may do that in a separate video. It's not about the 76ers. It is about the Atlanta Hawks, who did the impossible. A lot of people didn't think they would be here. No one thought they would be here outside of them and diehard Hawks fans. But they are here in the conference finals for the first time since 2015, and it's just so happened that the guy that they're going up against was their coach that season, Mike Budenholzer, who's now the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, was the Atlanta Hawks coach the year they went to the Eastern Conference Finals, swept by LeBron James and the Cavaliers, of course. And speaking of the Bucks, they defeated the Heat in the first round. It was a sweep. Not much to cover there. I thought that would happen because Miami just, talk about the Heat. They made the Lakers look really bad this year with how bad they were. But the season for them really got going in the second round when they went up against the Nets. Just like the Hawks, they were in a Game 7. They pulled off the upset by beating an injury-plagued Nets team, but it doesn't matter because they still won the series. I knew they could win because of the injuries and because of the lack of chemistry Brooklyn was coming in with. I really thought that would play a factor because you don't really need, I know Drew Holiday is new to the team, but for the most part, the Bucks have been together for some time in doing this, and it wouldn't be hard for Drew Holiday to fit right in as opposed to two other superstars like Kyrie, who got injured, and James Harden, who was injured, who was hobbled because he got I think he even labeled it a grade 2 hamstring pull. And I knew it would be difficult for Brooklyn to overcome that. I honestly believe that would be the case even if those two were healthy. And I know some of you are saying, get out of here. Nets would have won in 5 if Brooklyn was healthy. But I truly believe Milwaukee still would have won the series. I picked them in 6, but they won in 7. And when you think about it, it should have been in 6 had they not blown that 17-point lead. The game where KD went off for like 49 points. But the Bucks, they're back in the Eastern Conference Finals. Second time in the last 3 years. This is their second time. They were there 2 years ago when they fell to Toronto. But they are back. Congratulations to both teams. And now let's get into it. But yeah, we have Bucks, Hawks, Eastern Conference Finals. And when you just look at these two teams, both teams won a championship way back when. The Hawks last won in the 50s as the St. Louis Hawks. The Celtics, they beat the Celtics to win, but the Bucks last won back in, I think, 72. I think Kareem was on that team. I think that's when he was a young rookie or something like that. But, we'll fact check that. But, yeah, so no matter what happens here, it'll be our first time seeing, for a lot of us, our first time seeing any of these teams in the NBA Finals, whichever one comes out, just like in the West, Well, no, not in the West because we had the Suns there 11 years ago, but the Clippers have never been there. But anyone who wins the championship, it'll be our first time ever seeing them win a championship. These two franchises has played in 22 playoff games, and their record is dead even. They're dead even against one another at 11-11. 5 postseason meetings, with this being the 6th, and all have been in the first round up until now. Last time they met in the playoffs was 2010 during the era of Brandon Jennings, Andrew Bogut, Carlos Delfina, Michael Redd, and Jerry Stackhouse. The Hawks had Mike Bibby, Jamal Crawford, Al Horford, Joe Johnson, Zaza Pachulia, Jeff Teague, Josh Smith, and Jeff Teague was on the Hawks team, that last team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals back in 2010. He was the young player on the Hawks. And I don't know if he had that much playing time, but he was the guy, he and DeMarre Carroll, but he was the guy on that Eastern Conference Championship, the team that made it to the Eastern Conference Championship game back in 2015. He was the guy, and then you fast forward today, he's on the Bucks, and he's not even playing. He's not even really playing. So I thought that was an interesting little nugget heading into this series to see the progress. For he was a young guy, then he was the guy, and now he's a guy. The Bucks won the season series 2-1. First game they won back in Milwaukee, 129 and 115. They won game 2, 120 to 109 in Atlanta, and Atlanta took the last matchup of the season, 111 to 104. Now let's get to the actual matchup that's taking place, and let's see who is going to prevail in an unlikely matchup if these two teams, unlikely foes, facing off for the right to challenge for the NBA championship. In one corner, you have the Atlanta Hawks, again 14 and 20, fired their coach, promoted their assistant coach to interim head coach, turned it around, got them to the playoffs. In another corner, you got the Milwaukee Bucks, who still have a lot to prove because it's pretty much wide open for them to take. They overcame Brooklyn. Miami wasn't a threat at all. Now they're here. This is their chance. And can they get it done? Will they get it done? Giannis will not have a better opportunity than this. You got no Embiid, thanks to his opponent. No KD. He took care of that himself. No LeBron James. And most likely no Kawhi Leonard. So if he loses this, then of course, we always say, oh, there's next year, but people will never respect him on this level again. People will never look at Giannis and really, give them props or credit or whatever, or really put them in that category when it comes to, who you think is going to win the championship. We'll say, okay, the Bucks will be in the playoffs. They'll be there. They'll give a team a headache. But at the end of the day, we know that Milwaukee will not win a championship or make it to the finals. So Giannis has to make it this year because he will not have a better opportunity than this. But Atlanta, no pushovers. Atlanta are no pushovers. The Bucks defensively are better than Philly, in my opinion. The Hawks have been the Cinderella of the playoffs, if you ask me. But I think this is where it ends. As good as Trae has been, he still struggled to shoot the ball, in these playoffs. Not for the most part, but you can see, I think he's put enough bad play on film for Milwaukee and Budenholzer to just look at that and say, okay, this is how we take advantage of that. This is how we cool ice Trae down. This is how we heat them up. We do them like we did Miami. We do them like we did Brooklyn. They got some bodies that they can throw on Trae Young because at the end of the day, he's still a small guy. And I think this is going to be the struggle series for him. I think this is going to be the series where they bring Trae back down to earth. No disrespect to him. Proud of what he's done. They've been a great team, in these playoffs. They weren't a great regular season team. They picked things up once they, got Nate McMillan in there as an interim head coach, and he should be promoted. I'm going to take Milwaukee to win this series in 5. I'm going to give, I know. First round, I said the Hawks would lose in 5. Last round, the only reason I said they would take it to 7 is because of Embiid's injury. But I think this is where it ends in 5 right here. I think Milwaukee will just be too much to handle because they are coming in with the momentum of doing what people didn't think they would do, even with the absence of Kyrie Irving and a hobbled James Harden. People still doubted the Milwaukee Bucks. They prevailed, they overcame it, and now they are playing a lesser opponent. Things didn't get much more difficult for them as the rounds went on. They had Miami, easy work. Brooklyn, the hardest challenge for them so far. And then they're going to Atlanta, who's not better than Brooklyn, who's not a greater opponent. Brooklyn is supposed to be the Milwaukee Bucks Eastern Conference championship opponent, but it is the Hawks. And the Hawks had, like I said, they did their thing, but they are not ready for this moment because this is Giannis's moment. I think they're going to win it, and I think they're going to go to the NBA Finals to take on the Clippers because the Clippers are still going to beat the Suns in 7. I'm still taking Clippers in 7 in that series. So that's my pick. Thanks for hearing me out. Thanks for listening to me. Until next time, we got the NBA Finals coming up. And again, basketball is slowly but surely and dwindling down. And before you know it, we got football. And you know what that means. Take care, guys.